With 5 weeks to go until Britain is set to formally leave the European Union, new polls commissioned by us show the stark disparity of knowledge on Brexit from across the continent. The Populus survey shows almost a third of French and Italian people think that the UK has already left the EU. When asked about the impact on Britain, nearly two-thirds of German people believe that Brexit will significantly damage the UK. And within the UK itself, opinion about the EU remains, well, divided. And as that Brexit deadline looms, what does Brexit mean for the nations remaining inside the Union? Well, our political editor Darren McCaffrey joins us now from London, where prominent figures from across the Brexit spectrum are gathering to discuss what the UK withdrawal means from a European perspective. Darren, let's start with that polling that we've done. Just pick out a few of the more surprising numbers.
Yeah, I think it is surprising, given the fact that we've been talking about Brexit an awful lot, Bell, over the last, 2.5 years, that so many people in Europe, on the rest of the continent at least, do think that the UK has already left. I think that polling is interesting, but it is a constant reminder when we try and cover European politics here on Euronews that actually, people are still fundamentally aware of and interested in their own national politics. But we're trying to change that at Euronews today. We're hosting an event. Welcome to the Saatchi Gallery here in London, by the way. We're talking about over and out Brexit from a European perspective. This Euronews conference, hundreds of people are gathering here to talk about that. And we're kind of asking, is Brexit essentially a sense of self-harm, or is it an opportunity for the United Kingdom in a much more global way? And we're going to hear from a whole range of people, from MEPs across the spectrum, including people who are very proudly European and others that are very keen to leave, and also, indeed, it must be said, from the British government. But first, let's actually get the view of someone who knows very much about this process and indeed about European politics. It is José Manuel Barroso. He was, of course, EU Commission President for 10 years. Mr. Barroso, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on Euronews on Good Morning Europe. Are you surprised, as someone who's been through many negotiations, that we are, 30-odd days away from the deadline and the negotiations are still carrying on?
I am very surprised, and I think everybody is surprised. A country like Britain, that is known for its pragmatism, its common sense, its political wisdom, is now deeply divided, not only in the Parliament but in the society. And I think this is the result of the fact that it is difficult to combine a binary choice in a referendum, yes or no, to a multiple choice about what kind of relationship there is with the European Union. There was a majority in the referendum to say no, but there is no majority to say yes to any specific solution.
Do you think, though, it is also in part and this has been a constant narrative of British relations with the rest of the European Union, a misunderstanding of the attitude in Brussels, and it must be said a misunderstanding of the attitude that Brussels has about opinion here in the UK?
It's not just Brussels, it's the European Union. Let's not forget that there was an agreement, and there still is, between the UK government and all the other governments, the 27 other governments of the European Union. The real issue is that there is not a majority in this country. So the problem has not been so much the negotiation of the European Union with the UK, but I would say the negotiations of the UK with itself, because until now it was not possible to have a clear majority for a specific solution.
It must be said, though, that almost no one, or certainly no one in Brussels and elsewhere, wants to see the UK crash out. No. Shouldn't Brussels and Dublin move on this issue of the Irish backstop? Shouldn't they offer guarantees, maybe make it time limited, maybe make it that Britain could leave unilaterally?
I think some kind of compromise should be found. We have to keep an eye on the big picture. And there will be no country more important for the European Union in the future than the United Kingdom. And also for the United Kingdom, there will be no relationship more important than the one with the European Union. So it's critically important from a political and strategic perspective, not only because of the economy, that we avoid a hard Brexit, that we have some resentment. So I hope there will be still some room for some compromise, and that we can avoid a hard Brexit that will have certainly very negative consequences for the economy and for the overall strategic relationship between Europe and the UK.
Two final questions. First of all, Britain is going to leave in some form or another. How damaging is that for the European Union to lose the second biggest economy?
It's certainly damaging, not only the economy, but to lose such an important country, one of the most important members of the European Union, a country with a very global outreach, with strategic depth. So, but also it's damaging for the UK, because the UK will lose the influence it has today in the European Union. And the European Union, together with the United States and China, is simply one of the three major economic poles in the world. So it's damaging for everybody. So that's why it is a lose-lose situation if we don't find some kind of compromise.
And just very finally, what's going to happen? You say there needs to be a compromise. What do you think is most likely now to happen?
I think the most likely should be, I don't know if it's going to happen, the Europeans to accommodate some of the concerns expressed by the British authorities. Now, I'm not sure if this will be enough for the British Parliament. So once again, I think the critical problem is here. So is it possible to build a consensus around some kind of reasonable solution? So I hope, and from what I know from the European Union, the Europeans will make some accommodation. There will be still some room, probably not reopening the withdrawal agreement. One thing I've learned in Brussels is even if it is very difficult for the Europeans to agree on something, it's even more difficult to change it once it is agreed. So it's difficult to reopen the withdrawal agreement, but it should be possible with some legal creativity and imagination to find some kind of compromise.